Originally commissioned by Benito Mussolini himself, the Fiat 500 was primarily designed as a last resort suicide weapon during the closing years of World War II and was used with mixed results against infantry and light armor. When the war ended, the remaining 9,000 douchebugs, as they were known during the fascist era, had their explosive payloads removed and were given to civilians who looked like they deserved it. Post-war, the car gained the name of Topolino, which translates as either Little Mouse or Bloody Roller Skate, depending on the dialect. Its continuing popularity is down to two reasons. First, it can be driven on a provisional moped license, and secondly, it's extremely cheap to tax and insure, as under European law it's not actually classified as a car, but rather falls into the category of self-propelled trailer. The modern version, launched in 2007 as the Nuovo 500, was designed by one of the icons of Italian motoring, Enzio Bambini Uovo. Enzio was a true patriot, who famously had the Italian tricolour tattooed on his perineum. His approach to life is encapsulated in Fiat's eponymous company motto, Caveat Emptor. He was a difficult man to work for, and had an almost psychopathic hatred of the Dutch, but he inspired fierce loyalty throughout the entire supply chain. After designing some of the cream of Italian automotive icons for almost 3 decades, Enzio himself disappeared after a corporate bender in Turin in 1997. His body was discovered in 2005 in a stationary cupboard in a girls' boarding school near Trieste. No one knows where he went for those 8 years, who he met or what he did, but in his pocket were the blueprints for a new city car, which was named in his memory as the Enzio Uovo, eventually contracted to Nuovo 500. The Fiat 500 is a little bit like a bumblebee. Theoretically, on paper, it shouldn't work, but despite that, you still wake up to find a bunch of them dead in your garden. That said, the new model has some significant improvements over the old one. The engine has multiple cylinders, the rear seats aren't just painted on, and engaging the cigarette lighter no longer stalls the vehicle. Accelerator, brake and clutch now all have their own dedicated pedal, which makes the car significantly easier to control. In terms of luggage space though, the 500 is still definitely a man's car. It has the kind of boot that says Scott made it to the South Pole with 5 kilos of luggage per man, so how about you butch up a little and dump some of those blouses and shoes? But, just like houses and beautiful women, staring at the outside is no substitute for getting inside the thing and taking it for a spin. Driving the Fiat 500 is a little bit like having sex with a blood relative. It's uncomfortable, probably not something to announce on social media, but sometimes it's just unavoidable. The acceleration on one of these things is unambitious but insistent, like a wheelchair rolling down a hill. And, although it handles like a bouncy castle with learning difficulties, its turning circle is astounding. It can spin around in almost its own length, although its habit of occasionally doing that unannounced is less desirable. Depending on which edition of the driver's handbook you have, top speed is listed at anywhere between 65 and 900 miles an hour. Although, due to a translation error, the diesel version cites 450 hectares per calendar month. In terms of fuel though, this is where the 500 scores. Like a student at a party, it'll drink pretty much anything. It'll run on petrol, diesel, lighter fluid, even methylated spirits, although that does cause the exhaust to smell like a science teacher's wee. So, in summary, the Fiat 500 is a little bit like Marmite. You either hate it, or there's something wrong with you. But it's a big wide world out there, so just like the cheeky girls, bestiality, or even Nigel Farage, presumably there was someone out there who likes this sort of thing.